Hello there. Welcome to this edition number 26 of Joy Sightings. Today I read from Tales of the Resistance by David and Karen Maines, the second chapter entitled Doubletalk, Triple Tongue, and Theysay. Heralds stood on broadcast columns throughout Enchanted City and shouted news. They announced special events, as well as the hour of the night. Because of power outs, however, no one really knew the correct time. One herald might proclaim, "Midnight, all's well," while another shouted, 10:30 o'clock, half-night approaches. No wonder citizens suffered from indigestion. They were always eating dinner at the wrong hour. Doubletalk, Triple Tongue, and Theysay were friends. The three boys had grown up in Wire Oxon, the tenement slums that stretched for miles, hovel stacked upon hovel. Together they endured illness, poverty, hunger, and branding. When Theysay's parents died, the other two helped him escape orphan dragnets by hiding him back and forth in their own tenement hovels, at great risk of penalty to themselves. All were now heralds of the enchanter, and proud of their accomplishment. It was something for penniless young men to rise to heraldship, to stand on the tall broadcast columns, trusted with all the news fit to proclaim. It was something for ragtag ruffians to wear the red and yellow jerseys with the enchanter's insignia of blazing fire. It was something to blow the herald horn whenever the wizard's sleek black limousine moved ominously through the city streets, and to shout, "The enchanter is coming! Make way for the enchanter!" Unfortunately, heralds frequently made contradictory announcements. One might shout, "Melons in the marketplace, first come, first served," while the herald on the very next post was shouting, "No melons today, try rutabagas in your fruit salad." Some people suspected the heralds were chosen only if they had something wrong with their speech. Some heralds spoke backwards. Some had twisted tongues. Some had lock mouth, so that all their S's whistled through clenched teeth with a wicked hiss. Some had very bad breath. Doubletalk made positive announcements out of one side of his mouth. "The enchanter is coming," for instance, or "Melons in the marketplace," would be announced out of the right side. Negative announcements, however, would be shouted out of the left side of the mouth. "The enchanter is not coming. The melons have all been stolen." Trouble began when Doubletalk couldn't decide if the announcement was negative or positive. Was the theft of rutabagas good or bad news? Or maybe it was a good thing that the enchanter wasn't coming. Consequently, he began to make announcements out of both sides of his mouth. "The enchanter is coming," on the right side. "The enchanter is not coming," on the left. Then both at the same time. His tongue worked so hard it eventually split in two. Doubletalk always worked up a sweat, but no one appreciated his great effort. People standing beneath his column shouted, "Hey, bub, make up your mind. What you got, wet noodle brains?" And they threw rotten tomatoes. Triple Tongue faltered over each word 3 times. The enchanter is coming," he would cry. His announcements took a very long time. After a while, he discovered that if he rushed his words, his tongue wouldn't triple so much, so he learned to shout, "The enchanter is coming." Unfortunately, no one except Theysay could understand him. People standing beneath his post would wrinkle their noses and say, "Hey, what? Why don't you learn to speak plain?" Then they would rock his post. The third friend, Theysay, had learned early never to state an opinion of his own. That was bound to get you into trouble. "They say the enchanter is coming," he would proclaim, or, "They say the enchanter is not coming." He never took the blame for anything he said because he only said what they said, and he said what they said even when he knew he shouldn't say it, because he only said what he said because other people said it. People beneath his column would look at each other and whisper in amazement, "Did you hear him say what they said?" He was the only herald of the three who ever won popular approval. One day, Triple-Tongue said to Doubletalk and Theysay, "Say, I'm getting tired of people saying A and what and rocking my post." Triple-Tongue felt that heralding might not be all that it was cracked up to be. Doubletalk answered, "That could be bad, or again, it might be good. It's probably both, actually." "Well," said Theysay, "they said that there was a new bunch of heralds being trained. They say some of the old heralds will be put to street sweeping. I don't know if what they say is right or not. All I know is that they say it." The next day, Doubletalk had something to report. "An enchanter's man stood beneath my broadcast post all night. That could be good if I'm in danger and need protection," right tongue section. "Or it could be bad if I'm not doing my job well and they want to put a newer herald in my column," left tongue section. "Bluey!" He blew his lips to relax them. His mouth was tired. Triple-Tongue spoke very fast. "What do you think all about?" "Eh?" said Doubletalk. "Why don't you just talk plain? I'm tired of some people saying things I can't understand." Triple-Tongue sighed. A small tear trickled down his nose and spotted his jersey. He was tired of never being understood. "He said," translated Theysay, "what do you think that's all about?" "Oh," said Doubletalk. "Why didn't you say so?" He blew out his tired tongue again. "Bluey!" "They say that there's a stranger in the streets talking about another kingdom and how foolish it is to live in the night, and that we should all follow him and not obey the enchanter," said Theysay. "What?" said both of his friends in amazement. "I didn't say it," the third friend answered, shaking his head and backing away. "They said it." The very next night, Triple-Tongue noticed a stranger standing beneath his broadcast column. A soft light surrounded the man. Blowing his herald horn, Triple-Tongue made an announcement very quickly. "Melon's Marketplace! Melon's Marketplace!" Triple-Tongue heard a nearby taxi honk its horn. "Hark, hark!" "Nya, nya," shouted the people, rocking his post. As if he didn't have enough troubles with citizens yelling at him and with the threat of new heralds, now the city taxi company was interfering. Every herald knew about the cabbies, who had banded together to help the citizens of Enchanted City discover the true news. What a nuisance! One beep meant yes, two beeps meant no. He leaned from his column and peered into the shadows. How many honks did that horn honk?" Triple-Tongue could barely see the stranger's smile. "The horn blasted twice, meaning the news you proclaimed was untrue. The only melons in the marketplace are moldy, ready for the garbage dump." "Oh," said Triple-Tongue. He had been afraid of that, but why did he suddenly feel so ashamed? Was it because he had known there were no good melons in the marketplace? He let his herald horn dangle by his side. Its ribbon standard drooped in the dust at the top of his column. "In my kingdom," said the stranger, "we work very hard to speak what is. That way we can learn to trust each other. Your tongue became tripled at branding. You were afraid then, and you are afraid now. Come follow me, and I will take away your fear. Then you can learn to speak a new way." Suddenly, all of the fears Triple-Tongue had ever known rose within. The fear of the hot iron at branding, the fear of his parents leaving him, the fear of orphan dragnets, the fear of living with the orphan keeper, the fear of not being understood, the fear of being understood too much. No wonder his tongue tripled over itself. Could it be possible never to fear again? Triple Tongue climbed down from the broadcast column. He propped his horn against the base and tore the insignia of fire from his herald's jersey. He'd had enough. No one had ever understood him before, not the way this stranger in one brief moment understood him. "But my friends," he asked. "Take me to them," said the stranger. Soon they stood beneath Doubletalk's column. He was blowing his horn. Out of the right side of his mouth he announced, "Make way! The enchanter is coming! Make way!" A nearby taxi honked its horn. Honk, honk, not true. Doubletalk made bubbles out of his weary mouth. "Bluey! That taxi company, bunch of troublemakers." This time he spoke out of the left side. "The enchanter's not coming." Then out of the right, "He is." Then out of the left again, "He's not." Then both sides at once, "Is not is, not is not." The herald wiped the sweat off his face and flapped his jersey to cool off in the night air. The taxi honked twice again. Honk, honk. The stranger swung his lithe body halfway up the broadcasting column in order to be seen by the exhausted announcer. It's hard work speaking out of both sides of your mouth. The subjects in my kingdom say yes when they mean yes and no when they mean no. It's a lot less trouble, believe me. Doubletalk sighed. Who was this nuisance, interfering with the official function of heraldry? Code 345. He'd better watch it or the enchanter's eye would be on him. You're tired, Doubletalk, said the stranger. You need a good rest. You've been working too hard at all the wrong things. Come join me, and I'll teach you to work at what really is. Doubletalk pulled the sweaty jersey over his head and hung it on a nail on his broadcasting column. It was time for his nightly break anyway. He admitted to himself that the stranger was right. He was tired of wearing this heraldry attire with its ridiculous stripes. Oh, but how often he loved it. He was tired of blowing this silly horn, but sometimes he blew it well and it sounded wonderful. He hated for people to call him a noodle brain, but then perhaps he was. He climbed wearily down from the post and extinguished his night light as a sign that he was taking 10. Together, Triple Tongue and Doubletalk and the stranger started out to find Theysay. He was heralding the time. They say it's 5:30. They say daybreak is approaching. They say it's time to get ready for bed. The stranger stood beneath the column. Actually, they are wrong. People were made to live in the light. In my kingdom, they work and play during the day and sleep at night. Who says? Challenged Theysay, but he wondered how dawn surrounded the stranger. They must have been wrong again about daybreak. The stranger suddenly tossed back his head and laughed. The sound was amazing in the street at night, in this place where little laughter was ever heard. He pointed to himself confidently. I say, I have always said. I say now and will always say, live in the light. For the first time, Theysay realized how sick he was of what everyone else said. He put his hand on his hip and thought to himself, who cares? The words of the stranger struck him. How wonderful, how bold, how forthright. I say. I say. The herald thought he would try these words himself. I say, you're right. That's what I say. Oh, they felt so good, these words on his tongue. His heart leaped within him. He vaulted from the top of the column, swinging round and round to its base. I say, he shouted, the man's right. Live in the light. He put his herald horn to his lips and blew. The stranger drew the three of them into a close huddle. Listen to me closely. What really matters is that you learn to live by what I say. Come, be part of my kingdom, and learn a new way. From somewhere in the distance another herald proclaimed, "The enchanter's coming! Make way!" The friends lifted their heads, fear flashing in their eyes. Nearby, a taxi honked a warning. Hark! True. The enchanter really was coming. Doubletalk began to jiggle on his toes. Oh, now we're in for it, he shouted as though he had never left his post. The enchanter is coming! The enchanter is coming! How about a ride? Asked the stranger with a grim smile. He didn't seem to be afraid, but he was in a hurry. He snapped his fingers, and the nearby taxi gunned its motor, turned on its headlights, accelerated, and then screeched to a stop at the curb beside him. The stranger opened the back door. Going my way? He asked the three. Herald horns began to blow from post to post, announcing the imminent arrival of the fire wizard. Triple Tongue rushed to the taxi. He leaned forward to look out at his two friends. Hurry, hurry! Are you coming? Doubletalk? Theysay? Both heralds shook their heads. Doubletalk turned his back and hastened to man his post again. Theysay stood, paralyzed by fear. Make way! The enchanter is coming! Cried a herald. Make way! Doubletalk! Yelled Triple Tongue. Come back! Theysay took a few steps away from the taxi. A long black limousine turned the corner at the end of the street. They could all see its ghostly driver. Doubletalk ran toward it, waving it down and pointing back in their direction. The cabbie stretched across and jerked the handle to close the back door. The stranger, still standing on the curb, leaned through the front window. Tell big operator I sent. Suddenly, Theysay turned back and shouted, Wait! Don't go without me! I say I want to come with you!" The door was opened again. The boy jumped inside and the taxi sped off. The two friends jostled and bounced against each other as the cab careened wildly through side streets. Disconnected from the power line, the taxi ran mysteriously on its own, hiding in dark unlit alleys and then cruising into a dark garage where a great overhead door slammed shut behind them. "Who should we say sent us?" whispered Triple Tongue. "Yes," said Theysay. "Who was that stranger?" "Don't you know?" asked the cabbie. "Why, that guy's the king." So the two boys joined the resistance of the king and worked for the restoration of the kingdom, one without fear and the other with new confidence. They loved the new language they learned to speak, the language of the subjects of the kingdom, the king's very own words. And they remembered with sorrow their friend Doubletalk, who was soon appointed to the post of chief herald to the enchanter.